people were still leaving. And why were they still? It wasn't the space that was keeping them there. It wasn't the perks that were keeping them there. It's two things. No special order. It was the work and the relationships. And the work, human beings, I think, generally want to be productive. They want to be useful. Just look at anyone who's retired, see what happens. People want to be useful. And two, people want to be around people they like. As the whip was cracked, examples of the equine paradox. And the equine paradox, for those who don't know, asks the question, equine referring to horses, why is it there's so few horses but so many horses' asses? But we see that in management, in leadership. And maybe it's the some leftovers from the Glenn Ross, always be closing. Coffee is for closers. We're getting to a point now where new generations don't yell at me. Don't talk to me that way. I don't need you. I'll just leave. Is return to office the best way to blend generations?
Hi, I'm Denise Chaffin. I am the host of the Talking TA podcast. And today with me, I have Steve Levy. And Steve, I'm going to let you introduce yourself however you want, and then we will roll.
I appreciate that. And I'm glad we're recording this live. Because remember, it's one of my favorite writers, Hugh Prater, wrote in a book called Notes on Love and Courage. He's long since passed. He goes, perfectionism is slow death. In no special order, I run TA at tech companies. I run tech recruiting, run sourcing. One of the co-founders, along with 3 other very esteemed people of the Association of Talent Acquisition Professionals. I am, I guess, by my own doing, I speak at conferences. I write about all things TA, not just technical, but all aspects of it. And being that the last 2 years have seen a little bit of carnage in our profession, I am very bullish about 2024 and beyond. As an engineer, I'm not scared of AI. I've been touching AI for many, many decades. And we will, because it's really important. But I'm really bullish. It's like anything else. I mean, we've all been through life that's left us with scars, and scars are a measure of the experiences that you've had and how you've dealt with them and how you've come back from them. You know, we've seen paradigm shifts. We've seen personal computers. We've seen the internet. We've seen the Y2K. But all these events have done one of two things. It's either made people afraid of it, or they've inspired people to do new things. I think that's where we are. And to how you respond to it, how you set yourself up for it, what you do in the middle of it, what you do after it, really just impacts much. That was a very long introduction.
No, it was good though. Hey, well, let's jump into, I really want to have a conversation with you, especially because it is still such an ongoing controversial topic, is remote versus hybrid versus on-site. Who's going to win? I read an article recently that Dell is not going to promote people who are working remotely. Why?
I've heard, I don't know it. I mean, gross stupidity?
Yeah.
Abject. I can't even think of it. Something else comes to mind, but it's nonsensical. And are they going? And who was it? I have to check here for 1 second. There was another company. I'm checking.
Well, why are you checking on that? I posted on that when I saw that article, and I said, okay, so Dell will become a hunting ground then we'll be pulling people out of their company. You know what I mean?
Oh, unequivocally.
Yeah.
And the company I was thinking about, and there are other companies that are taking slants. They're not quite saying, you return to office or you're going to be fired. There's a great deal of I want to say subterfuge, left-handed ways of saying that. Look, yeah, I am old enough to remember having a whole closet filled with suits.
Yeah.
I long remember that it took 10 years to get the word senior in my job title.
Yeah.
I remember, massively long commutes, 3 hours a day commuting.
Yes, exactly. I do too. For
Miss,
years. Yes.
Missing things because of that.
And
And I can only speak of my perspective. My perspective is, I get more done. I work longer hours, harder hours, produce more when I am home.
Ditto.
When I am in the office, meetings are great. Meetings are meetings, whether I'm face to face, or video to video. A meeting is a meeting,
right?
But there are theories behind it. Maybe it's there's a command and control element. There are people, once you come up the leadership ranks, they go, well, if I can't see you, then you're not producing.
Yeah. That's it right there.
I'm internally driven. I don't need you cracking a whip over me.
No.
In fact, cracking a whip over me is going to do just the opposite.
Right. It's going to drive you out. I remember I was working as a contract recruiter and I had to go on site. And like you said, it was like 3-hour round trip, hour and a half each way because it was so far. And we get there and we're in cubicles. And when you're giving somebody a job offer, everybody's listening. And so, which really made it uncomfortable to discuss salaries and compensation with potential new hires, not knowing if the people who are listening are going to be affected by the offer that you're extending to somebody else, right? So it was very uncomfortable. And not only that, but you could hear everything that everybody else was talking about. It was this like really weird bullpen kind of arrangement. And so when I started working remotely, I thought, wow, this is nice. You can have these confidential conversations with people where other people can't hear. So I thought there was a huge benefit from that perspective to working remotely. And so when I hear about companies wanting people back on site, I think, well, does that affect everybody? How does that affect talent acquisition and talent acquisition professionals? Those of us and people in HR, those of us who need to have confidential, private conversations with people.
I've had those. You have to split. You can't lump everything into one big office, not office. If you're having I run HR. Was the most fun time of my career, but I've had ER conversations, I've had the PIP conversations, I've had the letting go conversations. Any of those, I would much prefer going face to face. I'm going to look you in the eye. I'm not going to shy away, and we're going to have a conversation about it. There are certainly events that, when done face to face, show a much, much higher level of humanity. I'll always be there for those. But the day-to-day stuff, if sourcing or leading or managing, I've managed people remotely. I've managed people in person. They get it. Not just I push the sourcing aside. They get the same. You get the same Steve. No, it doesn't. I can assure you, I am no different when you're sitting across the table, sitting next to me. I don't do across the table stuff, but you get the same person. If someone happens to be in the office, if it's a friend of mine who's running the company or running CFO, whatever, whether I'm seeing you face to face or over a video, you're going to get the same blessed person. And so, other than command and control, and we have these ongoing, these recurring facilities costs. We have this stuff. Well, sell the damn building. Get something, get something smaller. Get something that allows you to hotel better.
Okay, so let's talk about that for a second. So do you think that's why, and I have wondered that, and I've just assumed that that's why corporations are pushing people to come back on site, is because they don't want the empty, hollow buildings and they're not ready to sell them yet?
I think that's too simple. If whether you own or lease, real estate is speculation. And there are some people, leaders, who still believe culture is what I can see. And my opinion of culture is what you do when there's no one there overseeing you. And that's the, I'm going to drop my first one. I haven't read many business books because they generally bore me, and I've lived them, so I don't need to hear variations of barbarians at the gate. But there is a book, it's called The Great Game of Business. It was written by Jack Stack in 1981. Correct me if I'm wrong. Jack Stack, The Great Game of Business. And CEO or chairman, founder of Springfield Remanufacturing in Springfield, Missouri. And he was one of the folks who pioneered open book management, where like all the tool and die makers, all the line workers knew how their output translated into company revenue. And he had courses and he trained everything. But he also had a line. He says, here in Missouri, we have a saying, I'm paraphrasing here. This part I'm not paraphrasing. He said, shit rolls downhill. And that's leadership for you. Leadership 101 for you. If your leadership style is pushing shit downhill, you get what you deserve. It's being able to, but if you can pull people up, and it's really easy to say, pull people up and make them better. What's at the core of that? That's humanity. It's treating people the way you want to be treated. Would you like it if I beat on you? I'm bigger than most CEOs. I'm not a little guy. You want me to give you back what you're giving me? I don't think you'd like that.
Right. Well, and so let's talk about the hybrid thing then. So I don't understand why hybrid always seemed to me like it could be the answer, right? And I think it is for some companies. And some of my clients are using the hybrid word more. And I don't even remember using the word hybrid until COVID. I don't even remember that being even.
I don't know. We go before that. Before hybrid, I have CRS syndrome. So
CRS, what does that mean?
Can't remember shit.
Oh, okay. Well, and we were called distributed employment before we were called remote.
That's perfuming the pig. They call it what it is. I mean, look. There are two words that are almost part of everyday lexicon nowadays. Authenticity. I must bring my authentic. What is that? I mean, if you're not bringing your authentic, it means you're lying to yourself. But the other part is it's honesty. I don't like the word authentic. Authenticity almost seems like there's like shades of gray to it. And I'm going 70% authentic today. Is that okay with you? Honesty is like it's a binary. You're either being honest or you're not being honest. In a workplace, be honest, but learn to transmit that stuff and communicate good, bad, and ugly in a way that people go, I don't like what you're saying to me, but I understand it. So the same thing, hybrid is if you work from home and you absolutely, there's an all hands meeting and you want to see everybody and you can only fill so many boxes on your screen, on your Zoom screen. If it's possible, I 1-2 days a week in the office, that's fine. What else do you need? Because what happens, how much of your time in the office is truly 100% productive? There is the belief amongst leaders who haven't bought into remote. The remote means you're slacking off. it means you're doing 3 jobs instead of 1. Yes, those edge cases do exist. There are some it is well-known lore. Thank you, TikTok. That there, amongst other things, and there people with people working remote. There are not just one specific function. They've got multiple employers. They're working. They're working 2 jobs, 2 to 3 jobs at one time.
Yeah. And can they do that effectively? Probably not.
I don't know.
Depends on who they're working for, I guess.
Depends. Look, it depends who they're working for. What's expected of them.
True.
Can some people do it? Absolutely. Can technology help them? Absolutely.
Well, if you think about agency recruiters, they're working for more than one employer, right? They're somehow juggling.
That's kind of kludgy. They may be working on. They're not working for one. They're trying to get someone into several different.
That's true.
One person into 17 different companies. I'm being facetious. All my. It's 16.
But so if somebody's working though for more than one employer, even as a contractor, right? As long as they are meeting goals and that type of thing, and the expectations of the employer, why not?
I'm not one to judge. I can't do that. I
couldn't do it.
I know some people who can do it. I'm not going to besmirch them or their.
That's just too many hours of work.
No, Denise. But they're not putting in any more hours of work.
Oh, okay.
They're double dipping.
Juggling. They're juggling.
They're double dipping. Yes, that's not me. That's not.
Well, we had a guy who was a contractor for us a couple of years ago on the East Coast, and when he first started doing work with us, he was doing great, and then all of a sudden he started slacking off, and so the client who he was supporting assumed that he was double dipping and asked to have him removed from the contract.
And part of it is it's like doing a debrief meeting when somebody says, "I just don't think Denise is a culture fit." I'll come back and say, because I don't buy that crap. I go, well, what question did you ask? And what was your response that led you to well, I didn't really ask a question. Okay, what? So it was just a feeling? And no, that doesn't fly. Give me a reason why, other than you read, maybe the person just read an article about people double dipping and they think their spidey sense. Is telling them something. I'm saying no. That's just that's not spidey sense. That's just go take an allergy pill. It's not spidey sense.
Oh my God, that is so good. The spidey sense yeah. Did you ask him a question, or is it your spidey sense? So yeah. Then I remember having another woman work for me, who we thought. So some people do really well working remote. I know I do. I like working remote, and I do really well. I'm actually very disciplined. I work the same amount of hours, probably more. I probably work more hours, than I would if I was working on site somewhere. But I remember having a couple of people that worked for me, and one woman in particular thought she was self-disciplined to work remote, but then she wasn't. We could never find her. She was never in front of her computer. You could never reach her. She had to take her kid to karate lessons. She had a migraine headache between 2 and 4. I mean, so it was like, it didn't work
a migraine headache every day between 2 and 4.
Yeah, it seemed like it. Yeah, it was happening frequently. So you kind of wondered, was she double dipping? Who knows?
It was the Jerry Springer show. It was the Jerry Springer show. That's all it was.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, though, she wasn't getting her work done. So production is the name of the game. If you can't get your work done, regardless of what you've got else going on, then you can't stay.
Period. And the same thing. Ultimately, it's you're presumably we're hiring adults.
Thank you.
Where are you most productive?
I'm not going to babysit people. Yeah, I will not babysit.
No, I won't babysit people either. If you tell me you're going to do something, you do it.
Then do it.
I've gone through that phase.
I don't want to look for you. I don't have to go looking for you. Yeah.
But I understand it. There are generational elements of it. I've been through that period of time long time ago, where sometimes I wouldn't deliver what I promised. You know what? I was immature and I was inexperienced, and but that's where the scars come from.
Well, and now if you do want to work remote or hybrid and you realize that there's going to be this expectation that you have to produce and you've got to meet goals, that type of thing. But if you can't meet deadlines or something's come up, ask for an extension. Tell them ahead of time you're not going to meet it. Save yourself by communication. That was always my thing. Communicate with me if something's come up, right? But just to go dark and silent,
That's
that
no
doesn't
different
work.
whether you're remote or in the office or hybrid. It doesn't matter. Hire people presumably to generate something, to produce something, to solve something, to deal with something. And whether it doesn't matter where they are, just get her done.
Yeah. So do you think there's going to be this tug of war, if you will, between the whole remote hybrid on-site thing for ongoing period of time? Do you think this is just going to be the new normal?
It'll be the new normal until there's another new normal. No, but at some point do we really need these massive pains to corporate success? Do we really need a massive corporate headquarters where people can collaborate and collide and collaborate? There are many, many companies who still believe that. And what they don't see, what they don't hear, you hear it before you see it. They don't hear the grumblings. They don't hear what used to be something that people would brag about, that would lure people in, that could be part of your branding strategy. Look at this great place. We have, I'm being facetious here. We have foosball tables. We have endless snacks. No wonder my ass is getting bigger. There you go.
Well, and I remember doing a contract with, who was it, Qualcomm in San Diego, and they had their own store and where you could buy your own, like, beside a cafeteria, they had like little stores and stuff and a gymnasium. And Google did the same thing, didn't they?
But not just Google. There was a period of time, post mortgage-backed security downturn, 2006, 2007, where company, we need to find a way to get back on track. And I'm going with a little conjecture here. Okay, we have to find a way to keep people at work so they can be more productive. Have them live here, have concierge services, have gyms, have babysitting, have dry cleaning, on and on and on. But ultimately, it's people were still leaving. And why were they still? Because it wasn't the space that was keeping them there. It wasn't the perks that were keeping them there. It's two things. No special order. It was the work and the relationships. And the work, human beings, I think, generally want to be productive. They want to be useful. Just look at anyone who's retired, see what happens. People want to be useful. And two, people want to be around people they like. I mean, we've heard, in business, as the whip was cracked, we see a good amount of, many examples of the equine paradox. And the equine paradox, for those who don't know, asks the question, equine referring to horses, why is it there's so few horses but so many horses' asses? But we see that in management, in leadership. I'm very loath to call it leadership, but that's what it is. And maybe it's the some leftovers from the Glenn Ross always be closing. Every recruiter, I think every older, or actually more scarred recruiter knows about the Glenn Ross. Coffee is for closers. And we're getting to a point now where new generations don't yell at me. Don't talk to me that way. I don't need you. I'll just leave. Oh, is return to office the best way to blend generations?
Ooh, now there is a great question.
I don't know.
Yeah, especially with 5 generations working together, right? And I think that we can. I think we can blend generations, but there again, it's an ongoing effort to understand the other generations and what makes them tick, what and have them understand what makes us tick. So, or I should just say what makes understand what makes each generation tick, and going back and forth to learn. Yeah, those ideals. But that's a great question.
We grew up. We've had this private conversation about ages, but we grew up with extended families, with nuclear families. It really did, and now they're dispersed, and you don't see that. We learned cooking from our grandmothers, amongst others. Um, but that's it's not lost, but it's for some reason it hasn't been deemed as important. And I always have to remember the benefit of being an older generation is that we possess the memory of youth, the good, the bad, the ugly of youth. Believe me, kiddos, we know when we messed up. We look back and we think about the things that we did in business or in life, and we go, "Oh boy, that still hurts a little bit. Oh, I'm glad I learned that." Um, and the challenge being an older member of the workforce is balancing out wanting to tell people, really, don't put your hand on the flame, and the other side saying, I want you to learn what it feels like. Like my late mom used to, I mean, it's like, and we're thinking, look, my late mom used to say her grandkids were her reward for not killing her own children. And but there's truth to that. We see younger generation doing things and we go, stop. No, but we have to say, instead of saying no, don't say, let me just give you one perspective. Feel free to ignore me and lump me into an old fart category. That's okay. But how about, and just lay out the scenario, the situations, edge cases, and just say, if you've considered these, then I'm going to go back and pour myself another Geritol shake. But but if you haven't, no, no, I don't. I can look it up. There's a thing called the internet, GRTOL. But no, then it's like, if you ever need me, I'm here. I have, for some reason, and I don't remember when it came from, within certain factions within TA, my nickname is Uncle Steve, and not in like in a weird Uncle Fester, look that one up as well sort of way, but more of a, I listen, and where I didn't when I was younger, I was a pain in the ass, but I listen now and just tell me your ideas. I'll tell you what. Something happened when I turned 60. First, I never thought I would turn 60. Um, my dad's over 100, and he looked at me and look, and all. I turned 65 last week. I got a Medicare card. But my dad's going strong. Thank you, but I'm not going anywhere for decades. My dad, he just looked at me. He goes, "Damn, you're old." Perspective. Everything's perspective here, and um, they're just saying, just don't embarrass me in front of my friends. I go, will you just gave me the entree to embarrass you in front of your friends. So, because we said the same thing to our parents, and they did the same. And it's just, they're just a rites of passage that everyone looks back when they get past a certain chronological milestone, and they go, "Yeah, now I see what they mean." Now I see.
Yeah. Well, and we can, and I think going back to like the whole workplace thing of all these generations working together, I think that we can actually, to your point a while ago, we can blend all these generations. But how are we going to do it?
Well, you do it with two things. You have two ears, one mouth. Use them proportionally. Most important advice in business. People who are really true leaders
Our good
and
listeners.
are great listeners. And
Mm-hmm.
it goes to our friend Brian Fink. If Fink has been on, have you spoken to Fink yet?
Yes.
Yeah, Finke's good. Finke just wrote an article about essentially, is servant leadership dead? And I say, when servant leadership dies, you can be sure, you can be, if it, in fact it ever does, then rest assured that people's souls have died also. Because servant leadership is not what you do, it's how you think and how you, it's giving that part inside of you to other people. And sometimes giving means giving, and sometimes giving means listening. And so servant leadership.
Well, but it's still giving because you're giving your attention.
Well,
to...
the problem with the phrase servant leadership is like many things in business. It's overused and it's misconstrued, and no one knows what the hell it means anymore. It's like people on a resume saying visionary leader. Okay, I'll look at your resume. I'm going to look for something that's visionary. Don't give me something that's not visionary. I'm going to say something really bad.
Can't even imagine writing that on a resume.
People do that. Just
yeah, I have seen it. Yeah.
Go search the Blue Devil, what we call LinkedIn. I'm going to do it. Let's do it right now. I'm going to search for the phrase
visionary
leader. Let's see.
And see how many people. Oh my God.
Visionary leader.
Well, let's talk about visionary leadership. So, and making everybody come back to the office.
Okay.
So do you
like that one? We keep coming back to that office, don't we?
I know, but here's the thing. Well, because it's so important for these visionary leaders to understand who is the thing. I have to give a shout out to Form Factor and Tim Mueller. And Tim has, I think, since retired. I think he's on the fence whether or not he wants to be in permanent retirement. But he made a comment to me one day, and he said, "We have taken our finance, HR, and what other department was it? There was a couple departments, TA, of course. We have actually moved everybody home, including finance. Oh, legal, finance, HR, TA. They moved them all home. And instead of using their big corporate structure for those particular departments and organizations, they decided to go ahead and move assembly and test in to those buildings and some other engineering functions. And then that way, then he said, because why do we need to be on site? He was, yeah, there are people who need to be on site, definitely.
Absolutely. And
but we're not part of those organizations that need to be on site. So, and if we can't work effectively from home remotely, then we have no business working for the company. We need people who can work independently. We need people who are self-driven, self-disciplined to be able to do their own roles working off-site.
Good luck coming up with an assessment rubric to determine if someone's going to be
that's what needs to happen, though, right there.
Of course it happens. Well, I mean, now we're looking at a generalized failing of TA.
There you go.
And that is...
Or HR.
Well, whatever you want to call it, tomato. By the way, the irony of human and resources being in the same title is anathema to it's an oxymoron. It's like when CEOs talk about people, they say they always seem to grasp their hands like this. I don't know why. Maybe it's like the good hands people. People are our most important asset. Wait a second. Wait. You just call people assets. You're giving yourself away. You're giving yourself away. I know what you're doing with that one. They're just assets. They're just balance sheet data points. Okay. We need to change a little bit. But real good. No, well, I just looked at, and LinkedIn is changing certain things, and I have to do it around it. I just looked at, if I just look for simply visionary and leader, and there are some kludgy ways. LinkedIn is changing their internal search algorithm has changed it, so it's a bit. So when I just look for people with visionary and leader, about 79,000 results, but it never fails. It never fails when I see maybe out of every 10 more senior, experienced people in certain I'll see that visionary leader or variations of it in the summary of the resume. And then I'm obliged then to look for something that's visionary. And I don't have ESP, so I actually will. If there's something if my spidey sense is tingling, is usually it tingles on a resume because there's something there that points aren't connected. But I've interviewed enough people in my lifetime to know that something's probably there, and realize that people are really bad at writing resumes and profiles. So I'll call them up, and then I'll say, I got to ask you a question. Where's the visionary part on this? And they laugh. They go, well, I just put it in there.
Yeah, I put in quotes visionary leader and came up with 23,000 people who.
Yeah, but if you go visionary and leader.
Oh, okay. But some of these people are calling themselves transformational leaders.
Well, that's another one. Transformation. I said, tell me about something you transformed. But so it really does. You have to realize that hiring average is easy. Hiring great is not. Hiring great means you have to be knowledgeable. We talk about what I consider to be the very best recruiters. Assess and interview to include rather than to exclude. What are we missing? I mean, think about first dates. If everyone does these first dates, I don't do that in decades. But do people leave things out of that first date? Certain important factors? Yes, they do. And yet we still go for the second date or third date. So come on, people, get with the program and be real and realize that the challenge is how do we create the building blocks in TA such that it produces better performance? Is it where a person works? No, that's not a foundation. That's an environmental factor. The real job, the rubric. How many people write? But and I'll show some and shout out to very good people I worked with at Zipco, Brett Feig, Royce Robbins, and others who are still there, so I won't mention their names, but they know I adore them. We went the rubric route, and you have, in order to do rubrics well, essentially for those who don't know, a rubric is a position discovery. You do an intake strategy and discovery call to identify what the real job is. And the real job is not the job title. Yeah, in most conversation with someone before this, and most job descriptions are horrible. They tell you nothing about the job. You can take away the 6 inches of how great the company is up at top. You can get rid of that. And then the job description is everything you would expect to be in the job title. Like software engineer, you will code. Wow. Newsflash. But that's not the real job is what specific initiatives, scenarios, deliverables you're going to be expected. What are the hot initiatives right now that the person is going to be working on? So how do we then assess somebody, whether it's an accountant or customer success or sales? Well, there are core constructs, variables, skills. And then they're down the side. And they're crossed up, they're expectations. Basic, minimal, strong, minimal, basic, strong, superb. So within each of the above, this means working with the hiring teams and working with people doing the jobs to identify what the key elements are in there. And all it is, it doesn't have to be perfect, but it takes the whole interview process and the assessment process, the interview process, the hiring process, and at least puts everybody, you don't necessarily have to sit at the same table, but at least they're in the same house, as opposed to you go to a debrief meeting, and because everybody was making, assumptions as to what they believe were the critical skills, and you get people saying things like, "Well, I just don't think they're great at this or good at that," and then the average recruiter who's just really an order taker is not going to question that. The true talent advisors are going to go, "Well, what question did you ask? And what did they say that led you to come to that conclusion?" And then people get all verklempt over that one because you got them, because they can't. They're letting their biases, the whole rainbow of biases, not just rainbows.
Okay, you bring up a good point. One of the problems too with people using their spidey sense, as you call it, to rule people out as potential candidates. I recall many times in my career where somebody will tell me, "Well, it wasn't the question I asked, but before I met with this person, I happen to know somebody that knows him or her," and they didn't give a good reference on this person. And I think, wow, that you're using that to cancel out somebody. What if that person what they didn't even get along with each other? It has nothing to do with their ability.
There's so many ways.
I hated that one.
There's so many ways to delve into that. So what does but that happens. We have to be honest. That happens. It's no different than going on a date. "Oh, I dated that person. Oh, no, stay away from it." What did they do? Tell me.
Specifically.
Describe to me the scenario that led you to that. And then you determine whether that fits into your rubric. Without a rubric, that's just bias. It's culture fit, likability, get along ability are simply protocols for conscious, subconscious, and unconscious bias. And how many great people have companies passed on because of that? What is the cost of not having, of not being more diligent in TA?
Unconscious bias has come up a lot, and but I haven't heard the bias statement though with respect to somebody checking someone's reference that they know. But that is exactly what it is. Yeah,
exactly what it is. No, it's exactly what it is. Or if I
called John Doe, and he didn't give a favorable recommendation, but without a specific.
Who is John? I just don't like. I don't. John.
Yeah.
There are people who hate my guts. I'm okay with that. I can't fix everybody. I can't be this perfect idealized.
Right. None of us can.
Because we don't know what it is, because people don't articulate it. Managers, people in work I wonder your audience would think about this. How great are the people who are managers in your company and really managing it, at getting the most out of people?
That's a very very astute when you think about it, because bias, the whole conversation of bias, I guess, man, we could really go down a whole different avenue with that and discussing that, because that is the key issue on a lot of this.
But it's the same thing, but in the context of work from home and this and that, there are biases
around that too. That's what I'm saying. You can kind of look at bias.
Level of bias. I don't trust people to work from home. Why? Because I don't. Not good enough. Let's sit down. I'll come to the office and have a face-to-face with you and talk about that one. so I can find out why. Who hurt you so badly? What hurt you so badly? That
And
you
again,
have
too, coming up with a plan or a rubric or some sort of an assessment or whatever to determine who is capable of working effectively from home versus who's not, especially in a position when you look at and you align positions with the potential for working remote or working on site. Just like Form Factor did. I love what Tim had told me. And they just said, hey, this is a perfect opportunity for us to reevaluate this whole, because we needed more space for some of our engineering functions. And now we're looking at this going, we don't need these people to be on site. They can work from home. And if they can't work from home, to your point, then we have to replace them. But we need these functions. We need these roles to be remote. And these other roles need to be on site.
And that's just the way it is. And if you don't like, I'm sorry that you're not sorry. Look, if you're running a manufacturing machine or you're running a manufacturing line, if you're going to talk about, I wish I was working from home, well, the company probably has an educational reimbursement program. Do something else. I mean, that's just callous for me to say that. But there are remedies for that. You choose, and not everybody has a choice. And if your goal is to be the best possible company, you're ultimately being the best possible company to your customers. And where are your customers? Are your customers all in the office? Are your customers where are they? We talk about building a diverse workforce to mirror what our customer base looks like, so we can build products, builds products and services that this heterogeneous customer base will use. More different ideas, different backgrounds, different ways of thinking. They do produce better products and services. We're not doing diversity to click a box. We're going to do the hard work of finding people from diverse backgrounds who can perform. They're all out there. You're just not shouting to the heavens, I'm here. I have to do some.
Hey, but with that comment too, I want to segue into a conversation about sourcing and recruiting. I was talking to a guy the other day who said that some of the corporate companies out there claim that AI software is going to replace sourcing completely. I don't believe that.
Let me just give you.
And I think it is very short-sighted because we haven't even gone down this road yet. How can somebody even predict without having even ventured even like 10 feet out in front of them to see what's going to happen with all this software and AI to determine make that call?
Because, dear Denise,
Dear Denise,
dear Denise, there is precedent for it.
There's
when personal computers came in. When Al Gore invented the internet and inculcated into human life, it changed everything. When Y2K came on board and the world didn't shut down, it changed everything. It changed everything in really two ways. There was a group who said, "Oh, this is cool. I'm gonna use this to be better." And then there were groups who were afraid of it. AI is no different. Number one, I go back to an article I wrote May of 2016. Buddy Rob McIntosh and I wrote he said articles on SourceCon, roughly in May 2016.
Artificially stupid recruiting. ASR. Oh my gosh. And
we wrote these almost 8 years ago.
Wow.
And they're on point today. A couple of months ago there was a great Mike Marley down in Atlanta. He put on a fantastic conference called AI for Talent. AI4talent.com. Some of the brightest minds in recruiting in TA and AI, how you blend the two. spoke. I was there. But the interesting thing about it is every paradigm shift, and it goes back to what Thomas Kuhn wrote, The Structure of Scientific Revolution. And every paradigm shift goes from we're on some upward trend to go somewhere, and then when shift comes along, boom, it takes us to someplace else. And this AI era, and it's not pure AI. There's no sentience. We see things like videos from Boston Dynamics and the robots, and this is wonderful, wonderful work. But we're not to the point where if you use the AI sites, and I regularly go between, in no special order, I use Grok, GROQ.com. I love Grok. OpenAI is fantastic. That's ChatGPT. I use Claude. I use Gemini, and I'll try. I try them all, and I think the thing to do is you learn how to be a better prompt engineer just by doing things and seeing the results. So you take a prompt and you try it in each platform, and you see what comes up. It's like with sourcing, Denise. It's most people. What's the adage? You become so good at hammer, you think everything begins to look like a nail. But we teach the very best sources that I know, the ones who are speaking at SourceCon this week, the ones who speak at SOSU, Phil Tussing's organization in Cologne, Germany in May, the ones who are speaking at RecFest in September, and others that I'm going to forget, and I apologize to my friends who are at the other venues, other sites. But we use multiple tools because there's no one perfect place. So the thing about AI and TA is it's good for some things right now. It makes research faster. I'm pretty fast. When you're really nerdy and good with this stuff, it goes pretty fast. But in terms of sourcing and writing Booleans, writing outreach, garbage in, garbage out. If people are loading in crappy job descriptions, you're going to get crappy messaging as a result.
So what would you tell people then who are bullish about this and say, oh, I'm just going to use sourcing or AI sourcing tools, and it's going to replace all of my whole sourcing team?
They're naive. Straight out, those who are saying that this is going to reduce it, this is going to obviate the need for people in TA and SEAL and sourcing, look under their hood. Oh, they're selling a platform. They're selling a site. I see what's here. I will test drive it and show them. You come on, replace me. I'm honest. If I'm wrong, I will tell you. Look in your eye. I'll tell you, you're right. I'm wrong. I'm going to sing your praises. But show me. Don't tell me. Show me. That's my interviewing mantra. Don't tell me. Show me.
I don't know. I just think that this conversation is really helping me to understand the short-sightedness that we're seeing right now. When you talk about remote work and you talk about replacing people using AI, I think there's still a lot of short-sightedness that's happening. And okay, so if you're going to be a visionary leader, like you said a while ago, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Be the listener. Right? If you want to be visionary, you have to be a great listener, right? To other people versus
I want to go back to
judgment calls just based on what's happening in front of you right this moment.
Yeah, I want to go back to the thing I said last year. Pew did a survey of CHROs. Well, they asked CHROs in the next 12 months, how many of you think AI is get rid of? And a large portion said no. Over the next 3 years, well, the number it completely flipped. And I posit that where's this coming? In the yes, it's going to take people's jobs. So where's that coming from? What is behind that? What is behind that flip? What is behind that flip? What changed with that? Where is it coming from? CEOs, CFOs, people in charge, they're hearing, I can reduce my G&A significantly with technology and improve shareholder value. Oh, that's a good one. I like that one. That's very, very positive. Okay. How many heads of HR immerse themselves into technology to the point where they understand what it is? Is it possible the flip is just a result of them hearing their leaders versus knowing what it's going to actually do? That's I'm not denigrating or putting down anybody in HR, but the proof's it's just where it's coming from. And I really just think that it's coming from a place of lack of knowledge. And I think more, and it's too bad, SHRM, Society of Human Resource Management, and others aren't having more, let me show you how it works and you decide. Let me show you how this stuff works. Unequivocally, there are certainly jobs that will benefit substantially from AI. Guess what? Jobs that benefit
Our
from
jobs right now do benefit from AI. I mean, I know myself personally, I'm using AI for things that I don't want to take time, and I know that AI could do it, like a job description, writing a job or rewriting a job description.
I would
right?
like to take a look at that. I take umbrage to people who use that as it spits out something and I'm going to use that.
Well, no. It spits out three things, and then you can take and use pieces of it and do copy and paste. So in other words, you don't have to use the whole item.
You don't. But what you have to do is you have prompt engineering, and my friend Mike Wolford wrote a very good book using.
I know Mike Wolford.
You know Wolfie. I mean, right? Mike wrote this book, The AI Recruiter. At the time, it really is good. And the irony is, Mike used ChatGPT to help write the book. So that was very, very wise of Mike. Taking the challenge, either be afraid of it or immerse yourself in it and embrace it. I would like to see more people in HR not parrot back what they hear, but come to us and say, show me. And I'm more than willing, whatever it is you want, I can show you what it can and cannot do. I'm not going to demonstrate it out of fear. I'm going to demonstrate it as out of learning.
Yeah.
And
well,
so
again, like you've been saying all along, though, even HR leaders, though, they need to be good listeners instead of just firing back what they hear and trying to make sense.
Find out for yourself. Don't go down that. Don't whatever it is. Don't climb and say, well, I'm not going to do it because so and so told me not to do it, and I trust that.
Or I've heard bad press on it, so I'm not going to try it myself.
Whatever it is that's keeping you from doing it, experiencing it for yourself, that tells me a lot about you. Really great leaders is a good one. My dad is, I told you, over 100. He's an original member of the 10th Mountain Division in World War II with the ski patrol. If anyone sees that one, there's some medals there. That's his sharpshooter. Was that a CIB? No, that's his sharpshooter. General Hay, 10th Mountain Division, is based up in Fort Drum, Watertown, New York. Lovely, lovely place. I'm saying that facetiously.
I was going to say, okay.
The command center. I
was wondering if you were.
I'm being very facetious. The command center is called Hay Hall. It was for General Hay, who was the commander of the 10th Mountain Division. He was also a 2-time recipient of the Medal of Honor. Dad still reveres him because General Hay wouldn't command his men to do anything that he wouldn't do himself. Real servant leadership is not just flapping your gums. It's one of the few times I can use a war analogy. It's getting in the foxhole with
the people that are working for you.
People, with your soldiers, with your Marines.
Yeah. Not your assets, with your people.
Not your assets. Climbing the 600-foot face, being right there to hold the rope. That's real leadership. Don't tell me, show me. That's why that's my We're at interview strategy. Don't tell me, show me. Behavioral questions are fabulous up to a point.
And going back to the initial conversation for this podcast around people working at home versus working on site, same thing. Good questions. Don't use bias.
Don't use bias. If a person...
And figure out what you need in your organization to be on site if you want to keep that building going, and what doesn't need to be on site, so that there's more, what would you call it, give and take on the conversation.
Well, the give and take goes to, you got to find out if someone's going to work well off. Give them a period of time. We have 30-day PIPs when someone isn't performing. Why not 30-day success periods?
There you go.
I mean, that's a poor choice of words, but okay, we're going to see how your output is after each for the first 90 days. No, but if you just assess on a single data point, you don't know the trends. That's why you need honestly, this is pure data 101. You need 3 data points to get a sense of how things boom. If first 30 days here, second 30 days here, third 30 days there, okay, I'm confident that that's going in the right direction. You working home is fine.
And the thing is, as far as buildings go, you can do other stuff with your buildings. You can build rebuild them out for other functions.
You can repurpose them for
yeah.
You can repurpose them for affordable housing if you want.
Yeah, if you needed to, right?
I mean, come on. I mean, there's so much that can be done with real estate. Of course, then if it's part of your real estate portfolio, you're going to want to maximize your asset, because that's assets, since that's the case where you will generate revenue for sure. That's a whole nother discussion. Of real estate's a whole nother.
It's true.
Another 75 minutes.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I so appreciate you coming on my.
So very welcome. It was a great conversation.
It really was. It really was. I enjoyed talking to you.